And welcome once again. This is Kylie Warren, and I am here with a great team. Everyone, can you please say your names for our guests tonight?
This is Dave Bosch.
Matt Urbanski. Bryce Kroon.
Megan Swadaki.
And Matt Fong.
And we are here for the 2023 Fall Migration Field Report, kicking you off with live Cranes After Dark. As mentioned, please feel free to drop your names in the comments, tell us where you are watching from, and give us a reason or two why you're excited about this program. We'd love to hear from you, and we are so excited to be here on Tonight Giving Tuesday. Thank you to all who have been dropping your names in the comments and telling us where you're watching from. We are very excited to kick off tonight's program, and we have Matt and Bryce here to talk to us about Giving Tuesday. So if you both want to come on over and give us a brief discussion point on that, we would love to hear from you both.
Yeah, thanks, Kylie. This is Matt Fong. I'm the Director of Fundraising and Outreach for the Trust, and I have just been so fortunate to be able to connect and work with so many wonderful members and supporters of the Crane Trust today and throughout the year. The Crane Trust's work is really focused and benefits greatly from the support of our donors and members. So frankly, we would not be able to do our work, whether that's in science and research or whether that's in outreach and education or in land management, without the support of our donors and members. And so we just are so grateful for the many ways that you support our work. Today obviously is Giving Tuesday. It's a worldwide day of giving, and so we have heard from lots of folks today, and certainly I know that many folks who are online with us tonight have already made donations, and so I just want to say thank you for thinking of the Crane Trust and putting the Crane Trust as a priority for you in your philanthropic work. I will mention, of course, because it is my job, there are a variety of ways that you can support the Trust. We certainly accept donations online. You're certainly welcome to go to cranetrust.org to find our secured online giving form. Both our online giving form is there as well as our membership form. So we certainly appreciate your support in both of those really important ways. And so you're also welcome to reach out to me anytime to talk about other ways to support the Trust. My email is mfong@cranetrust.org, and certainly we can talk about a variety of ways that other people have supported the Trust over the years. But ultimately, I just really want to say thank you for tuning in tonight, and thank you, Kylie, for putting together all of this really great work in all of the different ways that people have been monitoring and watching the really spectacular fall migration. So thanks, everybody. Bryce is up next.
Well, thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in this evening. I'm Bryce Crone, President and CEO of the Crane Trust. It's very exciting and humbling at the same time to lead this great organization, which protects lowland tallgrass prairie throughout the Central Platte River Valley. For, as you'll learn more tonight, of the rarest of the 15 species of cranes found throughout the world, being the whooping crane, and the most numerous species of crane, that being the sandhill crane. I hope that you enjoy, learn, and look forward to visiting the Crane Trust soon. And I just want to remind everybody, this could all go away if it wasn't for all of you and the work that we do as a team and collaboratively with our partners. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this evening.
And thank you, Bryce, and thank you, Matt. Any final words from either of you?
No, really thank you to you and the rest of the team for all of the really great work you've done over the course of this fall.
I think it's really exciting. Just one little note to add, that as you hear from the fellows and some other team members tonight, how exciting it is to have whooping cranes on our property this fall. And we'll talk a little bit about sandhill crane numbers as well. It's just, seeing the fruits of the labor, just very special to all of us here. And I hope you'll witness that virtually this evening.
And thanks to both of you for joining us again. And as a reminder, my name is Kylie Warren. I am the programmer for the virtual programs here at Crane Trust. And once again, welcome to tonight's 2023 Field Report. What you are looking at right now is one of our live cameras looking at cranes after dark through a virtual infrared technology. These are the cameras that we use to monitor our riverfront out in front of our headquarters. They not only provide great scientific and storytelling data for us and capabilities, they also give us a live look at cranes and the other many species that come and visit our property. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We are especially grateful for your interest, and as Bryce and Matt mentioned a minute ago, without people like you supporting the Crane Trust, the work we do here and the views you are seeing now would not be possible. We are about to take you on a land management journey. At Crane Trust, the land is managed for sandhill cranes, whooping cranes, and all of the other species that call this place home. And what we're looking at in this footage is an area of land that was recently burned this fall. And as you can see in the distance, many sandhill cranes are making use of this land. I've got Dave Bosch with me. Dave, remind us of your title again.
Yeah, I am the Threatened and Endangered Species Specialist, so I deal with everything that is of conservation concern, including whooping cranes.
And so much of the work that Dave does is benefited by these land management techniques as well. Dave, do you know a little bit about what's going on in this image, the land management that they use to prepare for cranes?
Yeah, they implement prescribed fire, like Kylie said, and what that does is not only removes the vegetation that's there, the tall vegetation that's there, but it also provides foraging opportunities in these lowland grasslands and wet meadows for the birds like the sandhill cranes and whooping cranes.
And in addition to using fire, we also use a number of techniques. So the footage you're about to see was captured, I believe, by Matt Urbanski. This is burn footage from our live cam this past October. And I have used a technique where we see it in real time and then it speeds up so you can kind of see the impact of the smoke and the actions of the people. So this is a live burn. Why do they, Dave, burn in the fall?
Burning in the fall has many advantages, not only for grassland health, but also for as far as the birds go. It provides that open landscape that they are looking for their foraging and loafing and social interactions. And that burning in the fall provides this habitat not only in the fall, but also carries over through the spring before the vegetation greens up. And in the spring, it actually starts to green up and excuse me, and provides access to a lot of shoots and tubers that they'll also eat on.
Thank you, Dave. So another technique we use is disking and haying. So in this footage, we have a disking, tractor is disking the field. This footage is brought to us by Josh Weezy, and this footage, I believe, is from 2021. Dave, why do cranes like disked fields and hay fields?
It's the disking along the channel removes the vegetation along the bank lines, and that provides two benefits to cranes and other species. It first and foremost, it opens the unobstructed views up, or widens the unobstructed views so they can see predators coming. In addition to that, it allows the river itself to widen the channel during times of high flow. So it provides the additional widening benefit that the cranes really look for. As far as haying goes, it's similar to prescribed fire. It removes that tall standing vegetation, and again provides them access to the invertebrates and mammals and herptiles that they are looking for forage.
And bison and grazing is another technique that we use here at Crane Trust. And by the way, these aren't limited. These are just a few of the techniques we use. Can you please tell us a little bit about why we use bison?
Yeah, bison and cattle graze much differently. Bison, we graze the landscape, the rangelands year round. Cattle wouldn't survive grazing during the winter. Not enough protein and nutrients in the grass for cattle to survive, so they would have to be supplementally fed during the winter. Bison, on the other hand, are able to graze year round without supplemental feeding.
And the results, as you can see, are cranes using these lands. In a few moments, we will actually see a whooping crane on some of this very well managed land. Thank you, Dave, for giving us some insight on that. The cranes have really taken to foraging these hayed lands this fall. This footage was actually shot right in front of our headquarters using our live cam. So while we're talking about it, we just want to explain that we're using a mix of techniques. Much of what you will see tonight is a blend of captured footage from our virtual cameras, as well as footage we went out and collected in the field using a more traditional method, to include DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, GoPros, and even iPhones. So this blend of footage will hopefully bring to life this fall migration for you. And we're just going to take a very quick break before we move on to our next topic, which is all about whooping crane surveys. Thanks again for joining us. We are back with you. This is that footage I was referring to with the burn site and the cranes. This is taken from one of our blinds. It sits on a hill, and you can see that whooping crane right there in, I think, the third to the right. That crane was just using that land for grazing. Very fun to see that freshly burnt field and the cranes making use of it. On to our next topic, whooping cranes. So we're taking you to Phillips, Nebraska, right off of Highway 34. And Dave, Matt, and Megan have gone on, how many whooping crane surveys do you think we've done this year?
Oh my, probably 40 to 50 different surveys.
And can you tell us a little bit, Dave, about how long we've been doing these surveys here at Crane Trust and why they are so important?
Yeah, I'll give you a little background on the study here. The whooping crane study is a multifaceted study that includes collecting behavioral data, including your foraging and social and alert, loafing, preening, those types of activities, as well as eagle-crane interactions. Bald eagles have been known to attempt to predate whooping cranes. And we also look at some aircraft whooping crane interactions as far as their behaviors when low-flying aircraft are in the area. This study has been going on since the spring of 2019. And so in the past 10 migration seasons, we've collected over 8,000 total scans. The scans are done on a 1 minute interval. So 8,000 total scans, which is amounted to over 37,000 data points on individual birds. So we've got a tremendous amount of data built up over the last 10 migration seasons. As far as this fall goes, we've actually collected data on over 90 whooping cranes, mostly which were adults, about 80 adults and about 15 juveniles. Those birds were in 22 different groups so far. The season's not over as we still have whooping cranes in the valley. But this fall we collected over 1,600 scans, which resulted in about 6,500 individual observations of whooping cranes. This is all thanks in part to the field crew, including Kylie Warren, Matt Urbanski, Megan, and Josh and Bethany. As far as the airplane whooping crane reactions to aircraft, this year we have documented 7 occasions when groups of whooping cranes, so 32 total whooping cranes, were exposed to low-flying aircraft. And most of those were small planes. Five of those instances were small planes flew over whooping cranes. 4 times during the small planes flying over, they didn't have a reaction. Once they were alert to a small plane, and 1 Chinook flew over where they were alert, and a helicopter flew over where they were alert. So a lot of different instances where whooping cranes encountered these small aircraft flying low over the river. So, and you can see that on at least some occasions the birds are alert to them and caused them to become alarmed. So, then another part of the study I think I failed to mention earlier was we look at diet items that are consumed by whooping cranes while we're doing these behavioral observations.
So out of curiosity, really quick,
Yes.
we are going to switch to the Shelton footage, which does have some plane shots in it, as well as some rickety field shots behind the footage, as you will. On the diet, what do whooping cranes eat in the water? Are they actually foraging on the rivers?
Yes, they forage on the rivers, they forage in wet meadows, they forage in crop fields. And in the river so far, we've documented them eating numerous fish. In wet meadows, we got everything from snakes to small reptiles, frogs, and that type of thing. And we've also seen them eating small soft-shelled turtles, invertebrates such as dragonfly larvae. So if they can get their mouth on it, basically they'll eat it.
And we always start out really early in the morning, which is why these shots are in the dark. And using binoculars, using the safe distance. Do you have any commentary on keeping distance from whooping cranes? Because that does seem to be very important to doing these surveys appropriately.
Yes, not only are whooping cranes sensitive to the small aircraft that fly by, they also could be sensitive to our presence. So we definitely keep a distance. We try to stay at least a quarter mile away from them, if not further. We remain in the vehicle, so we do not spook them. They're much less likely to be spooked if you do not get out of the vehicle. We also use blinds and other cover for visual obstruction so they don't see us. And the biggest thing, like I say, is remaining in the vehicle when we're collecting most of this data, and using blinds when available.
How far away can one be in order to maybe step out of their vehicle but stay nearby it?
I would say at least a half mile. That's what I would recommend. We're allowed to get out within over a quarter mile away, but I don't, because we have seen instances when the birds become alert and are aware of our presence. So staying in the vehicle is your best bet. There's really no need to get out of the vehicle unless you're behind cover.
That was the plane that does our counts. These cranes did eventually leave the river, and we ended up following them into another area, a Crane Trust property out in Shelton. And we had to get up really early, right, Dave? We had to get up really early in the morning, meet before dark, don camo, crawl into a forest. You're about to see how that all went down in the next little clip here. But it was very cold and frosty that morning, and it was exciting to kind of taking that careful approach, making sure you're a half mile away or further, but approaching at dark and using the ground and the vegetation as a makeshift blind. And that is where we were able to get this footage on a beautiful misty morning.
Yeah, like I say, Kylie, when we don't have a blind access and we need access to the river or other areas, approaching in the dark is the best answer. Being quiet and approaching to a safe distance and using the long range photography, spotting scopes, binoculars, that kind of thing to get our data. So again, being careful not to approach too close to these birds, so you don't cause harm to the birds.
And these birds here are reacting to freeway noise. Many of our sites along the Platte River are influenced by the ambience of vehicles and other motor engines that go by. You end up hearing a lot of trains in crane country. So when you see the birds looking up to the sky, sometimes it is a plane, but sometimes it's just something buzzing down the highway. And even though what would you say the highway was about a mile away from those birds?
Yeah, in this area it's a little less than a mile, but most areas it's about a mile from the channel.
This is the brush we had to climb through. And how many surveys, this was a unique group of birds. How many surveys do you think we achieved on this particular group of birds?
The Shelton birds, we probably had 4 or 5 different sets of observations between the river and the cornfield, maybe a few more. I'm not positive on that, but yeah, a lot of times we can get multiple sets of observations on the same group of birds over several days in different land cover classes, and that allows us to compare the behavior between land cover classes.
And we did go back. In fact, some of that B-roll footage you're seeing of the vegetation is footage captured another day that we went back to kind of give you a sense of the environment that we were working in. And the birds used this property a few times, but sometimes they would go elsewhere where we didn't have access to them. So that's an example of a camera set up behind vegetation, looking at these birds from a half a mile to even three-quarters of a mile away. Sorry, stammering there. And Dave, while we are on this footage, do you have anything else you'd like to add before I bring in Megan and Matt?
Yeah, just a real quick update on a couple other parts of the study. We also look at diet items. Like I say, we've witnessed them this year, thanks to Matt and Megan mostly. Eating quillback fish, gizzard shad, and another fish that appeared to be a chub. So 6 total fish were observed to be consumed this year. Bald eagles, another part of the study, like I mentioned. We actually had one instance where a whooping crane made contact with a bald eagle to chase it off. So it's a very interesting study, like I say, multifaceted study that we are learning a tremendous amount about these birds and their environment.
Thanks again, Dave. It's been an interesting fall, and it's been very foggy and misty. And this was a particularly cool morning, but I'm about to take you to Alda Farms, where we enjoyed a slightly warmer morning. We're going to take a quick break while Matt and Megan get situated, and we will be right back with you with more stories about our whooping crane surveys. Thank you again. And we're back. We see a question in the comments, and Dave is going to answer. The question is, how many whooping cranes have been seen this fall?
Yeah, this fall we had over 50 whooping cranes on the Platte River alone, but our behavioral study and other studies that we're doing have taken us across the state, and we actually, between the whooping crane team, we have recorded data on over 90 birds, everything from adults to juveniles to family groups. So it was a very busy fall season and a lot of data recorded.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for your question. We have another question. The question is, where are most of the whooping cranes now? Dave, please take that one away.
You betcha. The whooping cranes winter down at along the Gulf Coast at Aransas National Wildlife Refuge, in and around Aransas National Wildlife Refuge, and 98 or more % of the birds are there right now, with a few stragglers still coming through the migration corridor.
Thank you, Dave. We're going to check for more questions, so please bear with us. And I think we're solid right now, but feel free to drop your questions in the comments at any time. We will get to them, and we have natural pauses throughout the program. And thanks again for asking those to both of you and for being so insightful. All right, so I have Matt and Megan here. We are about to go to our Alda Farms photography blind, where we saw a number of whoopers this fall. Do you mind introducing you both of yourselves and letting us know what fellowship you're here for?
Yes, hi, this is Matt Urbanski, and I am the Saunders Conservation Fellow. So basically, I do everything out in the field, but then I also have an aspect where I try and communicate between scientists and the public.
Hi, I'm Megan Soldaki. I'm the Lila O. Wilson Biological Monitoring Fellow. I also share many field responsibilities with Matt, and my focus is more so on looking at papers and pure scientific data and looking at a way to communicate that with the science people.
And we are off to Alda Farms. So we got word of these birds through the telemetry data, and this is Matt and Megan doing an evening scout while I was knocking down weeds in front of the blind the night before, hoping that these birds would roost in front of this blind. And in fact, they did. They came back and they spent most of the following day in front of that blind, and we spent a number of hours in the blind gathering data for these surveys. And while we're looking at this footage, I was hoping Matt and Megan could tell us a little bit about what the survey process is on the ground like, how it, in addition to going to blind, sometimes we go for very long drives. Can you just fill us in a little bit on your experience surveying whooping cranes this fall?
Yeah, so basically, we get up pretty late, so 5 a.m. That's a joke. And Dave will give us some coordinates. He'll be like, hey guys, here's the birds that we have around. And we'll, based off those coordinates, we'll get in our cars and we'll drive to wherever our assignments are, really, and search for the birds. If they're on the river, we'll search for areas where there's no trees that we can see straight to them. And if they're in a cornfield, we'll go to that first cornfield that we know they were sighted at, and then we'll look around within like a couple miles radius usually, sometimes a little farther.
Yeah, some days are easier than others, especially for our birds that have telemetry data on them. So if they have a telemetry radio on one of their legs, we get pretty much exact GPS coordinates. And if we get those really early in the morning, we usually know right where they are. Other times it's a little bit of a wild goose chase through the cornfields, trying to find our big white birds out there.
And sometimes we mistake other things for birds. We've seen pelicans in this shot. That's a very common one. Trash bags, believe it or not. Plastic trash bags, in fact. I love it when they bathe. It's so sweet. There was a morning where I went out to look for whooping cranes. I thought I saw trash bags, and they ended up being whooping cranes. So that happens too, where you can accidentally assume that you see a trash bag and it ends up being a crane. So a good rule of thumb, and maybe you can tell me whether you agree with this or not, but if you look at it and it's not a crane, you can move on, correct?
Yes.
Yes, we always double check anything that we see that it is white, unless it's pretty obvious that it's not a whooping crane, and even then we probably will still check through our binoculars. But yeah, once we find them, we find a nice spot where we can park, where we know we're far enough away that they won't notice us, but we can still see them.
Yeah, speaking of white trash bags, it was crazy. The whooping crane flights that happen every day during the whooping crane migration season. It was about 2009 or 10. Walmart switched from blue bags to white bags, and we had a record number of potential sightings that year. It was crazy.
That is funny. And we will share another story with you toward the end of the evening about something that happened last week. But yeah, that's pretty funny. There are a number of Walmart white trash bag stories in the birding world. So Dave, we need to meme that. Thank you so much for adding your thoughts on Matt and Megan. We'll continue to talk here. This is the vegetation. Like we said, we knocked down some of the weeds, but we were not successful in knocking down all the weeds. So they're not weeds, they're vegetation. Some of them are invasive species, some of them are not. But the idea was to clear the view for these whooping cranes. And you just never know exactly where they're going to be. And so if you see some vegetation in the footage. That is why that's there. And sometimes when we go out and look for whooping cranes, we get sight of them, but we don't necessarily have the opportunity to stop because of the bridge. Like, do you have any examples of that? Or where are some of the weirdest places you've had to go in order to get sight of whooping cranes to survey them?
Well, specifically, there's a group of two that really liked to be on the river that they could be viewed from the Highway 34 bridge. But obviously, that is a very, very busy bridge and not one recommended by just anybody, also the law, to stop on. So it's kind of a little bit of a trying to make sure that we're still respectful of no trespassing signs and the public driving, but also wanting to get our data. So me and Matt got data on those two by standing in the ditch with a spotting scope on a tripod and hoping and praying that we would be there for the 30 minutes that a cop doesn't drive by and we don't get asked to leave.
So Dave, while you're here, we do have another question. How far west have whoopers been recorded this year? What's along the Platte River Valley? So the example here was referring to North Platte, Llewellyn, or even as far as Steamboat Springs. Have there been whooping cranes for out that far west in the fall?
In the past, there has been clear out past North Platte, Brady area, and even slightly further than that. This fall, I did not hear of any sightings that far west. The furthest sighting, actually, that I'm aware of was near Overton. With obviously there was more birds that migrated further west, but just nothing that I heard of this particular migration season.
That is interesting because sometimes you get reports of whooping cranes, and a lot of times it may be mistaken identities out west or even locally too. And so the other thing we're looking at in this footage, and Dave, you might, or all three of you might be able to talk a little bit about this, is these whooping cranes were surrounded by sandhill cranes. And that is something I haven't seen a lot of. I usually see one whooping crane with a bunch of sandhills or whooping cranes off separately. Do any of you want to speak on that a little bit? Like, why do you think these whooping cranes were so friendly, or do you have any thoughts on why this particular group was with these sandhills?
Yeah, like you noted, Kylie, the whooping crane groups generally, if it's more than one bird, will roost by themselves and a little bit stay secluded. They are a territorial bird. This year we did have some instances, like you say, where the small groups were intermingling with sandhill cranes, and I'm not exactly sure why that might have been this fall, but it definitely happened, and I think more than anything, the sandhill cranes kind of invaded the whooping crane space.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're seeing in some of this footage is the heat wave. It was an incredibly warm fall while these whooping cranes were here, as well as the many sandhills that were here as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue our expose. And so this particular day, how long do you think we were in the blind for?
That's a good question. I would say I think we were in there. I think I got in there around noon. I think you might have beaten us, and then you were there way past.
It's the sun.
You were probably there until sundown.
Yeah, and the thing about some of these blinds is they're built in such a way that, one, they're pretty far away from the birds once you get up there, but also they're close enough that they're built in a way where you can approach the blind without scaring the birds. So we would call each other to make sure the whooping cranes weren't close, or in the case where you came back, the whooping cranes had left, and so I called you guys, and you were surveying them in a cornfield, and then you got back into the blind before they came back. So there's a lot of communication happening very quietly, usually via text, while we're taking care to survey these birds.
Yeah, Kylie, you asked a question earlier about the weirdest place these guys have observed whooping cranes. I had a unique experience with you this year where we went out to a private property with permission, and Crazy Kylie actually slept in a crane blind all night long. I've never done that, and I was not as adventurous. I slept in my vehicle on the same property, and we got up crack of dawn, actually before the crack of dawn, and actually captured more data and some video and photographs of that group of whooping cranes on the river, and so that was an exciting and new experience for me.
And we are going to take you to that footage very soon. Our next journey this morning is a quick look at sandhill cranes and their presence here this fall. And this is a morning, Matt, you were in the adjacent blind, I do believe, when we went out on that very misty day. And if you carouse our social media, you will find some beautiful footage by Matt on this misty morning. And it was a spectacular morning, a morning I almost slept in. So let that be a lesson to some of you that sometimes waking up and just taking a peek outdoors can get you some unbelievable imagery. Matt, can you talk a little bit about, and Megan as well, your experience having a taste of what the sandhill crane migration is like here for the fall?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible just seeing. I mean, I don't know the exact number of sandhill cranes here, but sometimes when you go out and go into a blind, they're filling the river from one side to the other. And I mean, when you're not used to seeing a ton of birds or a ton of animals in general close to one another, like humans can be, like in a city, like it's just incredible to see them all come in for the night and roost or leave in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, especially since as a fellow, I do live at the HQ, so it's very, very nice on those really early mornings when we have to wake up to go find those whoopers out on the river or in the field. It's so just lovely to wake up and hear the cranes. And I have not had the pleasure of experiencing the spring migration in March, but just this fall migration already, I've been amazed by the amount of birds. So I really can't wait till March to see how this amount of birds gets just magnified.
Oh yeah, I think you'll be blown away. It's an experience I think everyone should see.
And Matt has actually been on virtual with us before in the spring in 2022. So we're excited to have you both. Hopefully you both will be helping us this spring to welcome people to the cranes, as it were. One of the discussion points that has been brought up about the sandhill cranes is that we have an abundance, and people have been commenting that it feels like a year where there are a lot of cranes. We don't actually have any historical data to back whether this is an unusual year or not, and these cranes have been doing this for millions of years. So it may be an anecdotal example of when we just happen to have all the sandhill cranes here at once, kind of like in 2021 we had all the whooping cranes here at once, and that has not happened since. That was a very unique year. So keep that in mind, and as you look at this footage, remember what it looks like, so when you come back in the spring you have something to compare it to. At some point we might even throw a comparison video on our social media at some point to give you a taste of what it looks like and how it's compared to previous years. We did have a comment in the comments. A friend in Dunning saw 4 whooping cranes, and they were there for 2 weeks. Dave, where's Dunning?
Dunning is out west, obviously, but I've been there I'm drawing a blank on where Dunning is, I guess. Sorry. I'll look it up and I'll let you know.
We are going to take you to a little bit of cranes in the rain and some of the tricks we use when we're documenting cranes. So in addition to photography, one of the things that we like to do is play with the photos we get. And we had a very rainy day. What was it, last weekend? And this is just an example of, you've seen the mist, which is kind of a unique thing around here. An example of what cranes time-lapsed in the rain looks like. And this was, I think, a series of roughly 200 photographs. And so mist and rain are two elements we sometimes get here on the Platte, but it's really fun when it does happen because it's something that doesn't happen every day around here. And now we're going to take you to our final discussion about whooping cranes. The famous night at the crane blind that Dave and I went out on. Dave, you had a comment on Dunning before we move on to this?
Yes, Dunning, I guess I just looked up, is basically due north of Gothenburg, which places these birds in about the outer 5% of the migration corridor. So meaning that about 95% of the birds historically have migrated east of where these birds were located. So not uncommon, but certainly not as common as being in the Central Flyway where the Crane Trust is located.
And thank you, Prairie Starlet, for commenting on Sandhills on the Roop and in the Dismal. That's very interesting. So this footage was captured on a property we received access to in a woodland not very far from Crane Trust. And Dave and I went out to spend the night. We knew we were going to be there all night. And approaching the blind, we saw the whooping cranes on the river, had to stop, get all of our gear out, not approach, and just document them until they decided it was time to go back and forage. You can see a sandhill crane in this footage as well, but this was a very exciting morning, or I guess evening and morning. Dave, do you want to comment a little bit more on that? I know you kind of told the story earlier, but
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on having to kind of go out into the wilderness and spend the night to document cranes?
Yeah, I've slept in my car many times chasing whooping cranes, but the intention was to actually sleep in a blind that night, and Kylie actually did so. I chickened out and slept in my car again. So, but yeah, it was great to get up close and personal. These birds is hiding in the woods. We got up in the morning way before light, and actually heard these birds calling a lot, which is not all that common to be able to hear that, but they called a lot that morning.
And here we go into the morning. This is the path to the blind. And we're just going to let you watch this footage for a minute while we take a very quick break. So we're going to continue with this visual story while Matt joins us. This was the night we spent in the blind. I managed to capture Cranes After Dark from the blind. Great thing technology can do. And speaking of land and technology, Matt is back with us, Matt Fong, to discuss some land matters.
Yes, thanks, Kylie. And this has just been so great to see all of these wonderful images and hear all of the good work that everybody's been doing over the course of the last several weeks through the fall migration. I did want to say again, thank you to those of you who are donors and supporters and members of the trust that make our work possible. We do also have a variety of needs. We have a really great upcoming project happening here at the trust. Actually, neighbors of ours on the south side of the river came to us and said that they wanted to give us the first opportunity to acquire their land because they've seen the work that we do in preserving this important habitat and this prairie, and so they wanted the Crane Trust to have the first opportunity to purchase it. So we have moved forward with a purchase agreement and are working to secure the remaining dollars needed to purchase this, hopefully by the end of this calendar year. We are so fortunate that we've had many wonderful friends and donors who have contributed to this project already, but we are still seeking. We have about $100,000 left to fundraise, and we are so lucky that we have a good friend, Doug Fry, who actually grew up in Grand Island, so not far from us here, has offered to match the last $100,000 that are needed to fundraise this project. And so we're so grateful for Doug's generous contribution, and certainly hope that over the course of the next 5 weeks here that we can raise the dollars needed to support this acquisition. This property really is central to us here, right along the river frontage. Again, I think I mentioned about 20 acres of really pristine habitat, and so we're really fortunate to have the opportunity to acquire this property and know that it will be really important for us in the long term as we continue to secure and preserve this really wonderful habitat for the future of sandhill cranes. I'm also really happy to see all of the lovely images that Kylie has put on here of whooping cranes. We've actually documented whooping cranes on this property. So we know that it's really important to our work because whooping cranes are already using it. And so we certainly are excited to purchase this and know that it will be preserved for generations to come. So thanks for letting me jump back on here and talk about this project, and again, say thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Matt. And we are running up to the hour. We're about to conclude the formal part of our program. If you want to stay with us and see a little bit more about our virtual camera and Cranes After Dark, I will do a little reprise of that at the end of the program. But I wanted Matt and Megan to jump back on, and Dave and anybody else who have any final words for our team, and keep those questions rolling in. We have a few more moments to answer them.
I want to reiterate quick here what Matt just brought up. We are so thankful for the supporters that make everything we do possible, from land management to research to just day-to-day operations. So thank you again very much for all that support the Crane Trust, and we look forward to your continued support in the future so we can continue to provide exciting videos and programs like you're seeing tonight.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone who helped put this together, just everyone who's here tonight. Obviously, Kylie put all the videos together, did a lot of hard work to make this happen, and it looks amazing. Great job. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who's listening. It's very, very cool that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. I'm just going to look at the comments and see if we have any final questions. And as mentioned, I will stick around for a few minutes after the program to show you some virtual camera footage. We'll do a day in the world of our virtual camera, as well as some Cranes After Dark. But I just wanted to conclude the formal part of our program and let you know how much we appreciate you all being here with us tonight to relive this wonderful fall migration. We have a final question. We are grabbing the experts, subject matter experts on that, so please bear with us. And Matt, here to answer that question. How many acres is the property and how will it benefit?
Yeah, good question. The property is it's just a little over 20 acres, and it does have river frontage on the south side of the river. It's just south of our preserved Mormon Island area that we have owned for quite some time. The benefit of owning this property for us is also having the ability for our land management team to go in and continue to restore this area and make sure that it is prime habitat for whooping cranes and sandhill cranes, and really just also to ensure that this area is not either developed or mined. So we see in this area we see a lot of gravel pits that go in along the river, and so if you think about a gravel pit going in this prime roosting habitat for cranes, it's really hard to get that area back. And so knowing that this area will be protected and preserved for the future without development or mining is really important for us. Just also to point out, it is about 1/3 of a mile of river frontage, and so it does have quite a bit of riverfront associated with this tract as well. So obviously really beneficial for us in continuing to own and maintain it. Today, it looks like good habitat, but also we want to make sure that habitat is preserved into perpetuity for the future.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
And thanks, yes, for the question to our audience. So what we're showing you here is a day in the life of our virtual camera. And if you become a Crane Trust member, you will have 24/7 hours access to this camera as it is operational throughout the season. What we're looking at is a early morning shot. We will go from morning to day to afternoon to evening to sunset to cranes after dark. And this is just a little highlight I wanted to share with everyone so you get a taste of what our virtual camera can offer you throughout the day. In addition to the audio of the river and the cranes, we have the visuals of the cranes while they are here, and we do work very hard to keep that rolling on the cranes when we're around. And when we don't have cranes, we have a number of other species or land management activities that we like to highlight with this camera. In this footage, as you can see, we're keeping a sharp eye on that whooping crane. We used this footage to do a survey on that particular crane, and this is the sunrise, or an example of a sunrise shot that you can get from our cameras when the cranes are here. As morning transitions into days, we do have many cranes that leave the river. However, we have many that stick around as well, and they tend to partake in mid-afternoon activities that they do when they're here staging. These include loafing, preening, bathing, dancing, flying, and of course foraging for all of those nutrients they get from the water and the invertebrates that live there. This is cranes bathing in the heat of the afternoon. You see this usually on days where it's roughly 60 degrees or higher. It's fun to watch. We did have whooping cranes bathing earlier. These are sand hills, obviously, but they just love the water, and it's just fun to watch them enjoy the water in the area that they're in. At least I think they enjoy it. There's a lot of socialization that goes on in these moments as well. They're territorial. You'll see sometimes where cranes like to go to a watering hole and move through it. So they'll come in, they'll bathe, they'll leave it, but then if another crane tries to take over, if they want to go back in that spot, they will chase it off. So you see some of that aggression happening in some of these shots. This is lifetime footage that gets sped up to show you just the number of cranes that occur on the river sometimes during the day. And usually this happens when cranes are arriving or when they're preparing to leave. You'll get them kettling above the river. This is going into sunset. And on this particular day, cranes had been on the river all day. So what ended up happening was more cranes came to the river. I believe this is one of the days where many cranes arrived.
Sure.
Matt has decided to come back to the live stream preview. So Matt, what we're looking at is a day in the world of the virtual camera.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going into evening.
Wow, yeah, this is such a special camera, being able to see all these moments 24/7 that we really could never be there all the time for.
And this is a sunset, again, starting out in real time, and then we speed it up. And as the sun sets, we move into the after dark portion of our virtual camera. We have a little segment after this to show you about some of the highlights from After Dark, Cranes After Dark, but being able to see the cranes in infrared with their eyes glowing. Do you like this, Matt? I love it. I think it's a cool aesthetic.
Oh, I think it's really, really awesome to see. Especially, yeah, like you said, with the eyes glowing. You do not see anything like this anywhere else.
And that is a whooping crane. Sometimes we'll have footage of Cranes After Dark, and again, this is time-lapsed at later part of the footage to just give you an idea of the movements. And the whooping crane on the river at night can look very, very bright if we catch it in the right light. So that's always very exciting. I actually have an easier time finding them at night than I do during the day using this technology.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't have these full moons back then.
And we're going to take you to our final segment, Cranes After Dark, the 2023 Fall Field Report edition. And this is, again, a similar shot that we just looked at of our cranes at night. And generally you think they would sleep. And they do. They do a lot of sleeping at night. There is a study out there that says they sleep about 40% of the time. So it's interesting to see that, sleeping isn't the only thing they do. A lot of times they are preening, they are performing what research calls comfort movements. So that's like stretching your wings or stretching your neck. I've seen cranes bathe at night, which was a very interesting thing. Again, it was a warm night. I've also seen them interact, dance, and do all the sort of social behaviors they do during the day when they're loafing on the river, not foraging as much, but also just kind of socializing and bathing and preening. Some of that activity we looked at in the middle of the day in our last segment. We did a program on Cranes After Dark for our speaker series, and we will be looking at that again in the fall or in the spring. If you have any questions about crane behavior after dark, feel free to drop them in the comments. And here's a very calm night where they all seem to be sleeping. Oh, wait. So, sleeping, yes, but then suddenly alert when something wakes them up. And that could be a number of things that wakes them up. Usually it's coyotes this time of year, especially. But we've had some surprising incidents where it was not coyotes. We've had feral cats. We've had owls. We've had raccoons. I haven't actually documented an otter startling them awake, but I wouldn't. What do you think? Those otters that we just released.
Oh yeah, those rambunctious otters would definitely mess with a crane. I think they'd have a hard time not messing with them.
And so again, this is fall footage. All of the clips in this little segment are from the fall. And if you become a Crane Trust member, you will have access to Cranes After Dark. And here is another instance where cranes were sleeping and then suddenly woken up by something. And you can see that when they fly, they almost look, they have these little what do they look like, little comets or something, because of the way the infrared reacts to motion. And the problem with cranes getting spooked off the roost, obviously we can't avoid it when something natural or unhuman does it, but we want to take a lot of care not to scare cranes when they're roosting at night. They can fly into things that can hurt them, and especially power lines are very hard to see at night. And so protecting these birds on their roost and making sure they're comfortable is part of the reason scientists have wanted to know more about cranes after dark and what they get up to. And we're very fortunate here at Crane Trust to have limited power lines, but you could see like a fly off like this where cranes might get disoriented and run into something. And so we want to take care we as people, not to be the reason they flush from the roost at night. Sorry about our audio faux pas. The audio has gone down from our live cam, so we'll be troubleshooting that as soon as we're done with this segment. One of the wonderful things about cranes, and maybe you two have thoughts on this, is the sound they make and just how relaxing that is to have in the background.
Oh yeah, it's really cool to hear, and Kylie actually has a very good call. I think you have to do it for everybody because it's so good.
I think
It's an amazing
really
call. It
good,
sounds
too.
it
You,
sounds spot
you
on.
do the other one very well. The honking one that they do.
Thanks.
Do you want to honk? And
Oh,
I'll
no.
trill.
Maybe I shouldn't have said this.
If you honk, I'll trill. Okay.
Oh, I usually go off of ear, and then I try and recreate the sound. So this will be very difficult,
Okay.
and I apologize for the horrible sound I'm about to
Okay,
make.
we're about to honk and trill.
But isn't that spot on? That is
Okay,
spot
good.
on.
Do your honk again.
Oh no, I can't do it.
See, we have fun. When you sit in a blind for 12 hours, these are the things that go down. Okay.
Their sound is really relaxing, though. I
It
mean,
is.
especially with the large groups and they're all kind of doing it like in unison, or even just like one does it, then the other does it. It is quite relaxing.
I absolutely love it when the cranes call in the morning and they're doing those comfort movements and they're just trilling and they're all relaxed, and my friend equates this to them looking like little dumplings on the river when they sleep. Actually, there is some time-lapse footage in this clip that you'll get to see of some of the photos we've taken in the blind of cranes after dark. That was the last of our team departing. We just wished them good night, so we had to cut the sound for a minute. And to those of you who've stayed with us, thank you for enjoying this. We still have a little bit more to show you. This is one of those surprising things that spooked a cranes. Can you see it there in the lower part of the screen? There it is. If you know what it is, please drop it in the comments. Luckily, this bird did not, I gave you a hint, it's a bird, did not scare all the cranes, but it was enough to startle them. So it looks pretty pixelated. I apologize about that on YouTube. This bird is trying to eat a gar. Can anyone tell us what the bird is? And this is some of that time-lapse photography with just a few images. These were all taken after dark. That was taken at midnight on a full night. This was taken in the morning, right before, or maybe just as first light was coming in. You can see its eyes flicker. This is taken at dusk. And when we try to define after night or after dark around here, what we're calling after dark is when our cameras switch to infrared. That's a good timestamp for us. So all of these would have been captured when our cameras were showing infrared. In this shot, fairly long exposure, but if you look in the brush, you can see a predator that's got all the cranes stirred up. And this final shot is a time lapse, 6-hour time lapse of cranes after dark. With a little bit of a glitch because this was captured on an iPhone, so. You can see they are quite active after dark. And DJ142, I believe you're right, it's a night heron. So you can see that there are periods where they stay completely still. There's always a couple moving around. One thing that cranes do after dark is they have what we call a sentinel, somebody who kind of keeps watch, or some crane, and they all take turns doing this. Cranes also sleep with half their brains, and when you watch a crane sleep, you can see that usually there's one eye open, and that is so they can continue to stay alert for predators. So if you have any questions about Cranes After Dark, feel free to drop them in the comments. As we are about to switch back to live Cranes After Dark. And we've mixed the audio on this because cranes, I think I multiplied this by 10,000 times. I can't remember what it was, but you don't want to hear the audio of that, I promise. It sounds very shrill. Funny fact, Jurassic Park, they actually used bird calls and they slowed them down and used time manipulation on the bird calls to create the dinosaur noises. I think that would be successful with a sandhill crane call.
I think we could definitely try it. I mean, we should make our own dinosaur call.
Out of a crane?
Yeah, we could definitely do it.
Out of a dinosaur, essentially?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's go back to our live Cranes After Dark, and there they are. Shock and awe, sound asleep. And while we have that on here, I'll show you one last little trick with our camera. We've got a program called Blue Iris that allows us to zoom around and get close to the cranes. So we actually have two cameras, but we were working off camera 2 because camera 1 is our primary virtual live stream, and in the summer, what we call summer is really not crane season, we have that streaming directly to YouTube from the Pulse. We don't have as much control over that one, but this particular camera we can get in very, very close. And you can actually stack the cameras to give you more infrared light. So please bear with us as that blurs. I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. And the cranes do not have a sensitivity to infrared, so they can't actually see that we are shining light on them. However, we have seen bald eagles react to the camera. And so I'm going into the app and adjusting the focus so you can see them in better focus. The
This never works well when I'm doing a live demonstration, but I'm doing my best here. There we go. So we can get really close. Just takes a second to adjust.
That's really incredible. Not very many organizations have the ability to see their wildlife at night.
And it's a great tool. We're hoping to do something scientifically with this capacity. And so with that, I will leave you all. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Cranes After Dark? Funny anecdote? Your favorite bird call?
All I have to say is thank you to Kylie, because seeing Kylie out there every day going to get her crane footage and helping us do whooping crane surveys has been pretty cool to see, because she's always excited, always ready to go, and has worked very hard to get this done. And so it's been awesome to work with her and see her work.
It's really sweet. I actually want to thank you both, because it wouldn't be so much fun if it weren't for a great team. And I really, I'm only a part of what goes on here. There's so many things, and it's a collaboration. It wouldn't be possible without either of you, or without Matt or Bryce, or people with a vision who were here before, or even our wonderful audience who tunes in so regularly during crane season. We do have a bit of a following, and I hope you both help with spring crane season. I want to invite everyone listening to that program. We will be showing all kinds of the activity, and that one is all live, so we have no control over what you see when we've got the birds on the camera. We have to kind of edit and zoom and do camera motion right then and there, and it's really exciting. So we will bring more Cranes After Dark back for that, but we will also be bringing you the spectacular, hopefully 2024 migration is going to be as amazing as ever. And that's all I have to say, but I just want to say thanks to everyone who listened, and thanks to Matt and Megan for all their hard work, getting up at odd hours and driving out to find trash bags that were reported as whooping cranes.
Yep.
All right, well, that's all from us. And if you are interested in watching more of our live footage, our live camera is streaming to the public right now, just for a trial period. We will be switching that off back to members only here soon, but if you want to get more of a taste of what that is, please check out the Crane Trust YouTube channel, and if you have any trouble accessing it, just message me at virtual@cranetrust.org, or you can send a message on Facebook to the Crane Trust account. Thank you all for joining us again tonight, for your support, for your membership if you are members, for considering a gift for Giving Tuesday, and for just being interested in conservation and cranes. This is Team Whooper signing off, the unofficial component of this program. Thanks again.